Coming up next, the story of one of the most mysterious, otherworldly songs of the entire 80s. It's a song that absolutely mesmerizes, hypnotizes you as a listener with an exotic chorus that's sung in French and English. Actually, Brian Wilson, a genius, this is his favorite song from the 80s. Created by one of the foremost icons of 84. It started out as a ballad, but then the famous guitar hero who'd written the music walked into the studio and he let out a face-melting, blazing guitar solo that was so potent, when he walked into the control room, everyone that was there was jumping up and down cheering, including the iconic singer. The story of this 80s classic is told by this legendary guitarist and co-creator of the song, coming up next. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if music lifts your soul, you're going to want to subscribe to this channel below by clicking on the red button. Check the bell so you never miss out on any of our stuff. Also, check us out on Patreon. You can become an insider with us and you can get more interviews. Actually, you're putting up full interviews there. I'm excited for this one today. It's another episode from our series, Revelations. It's of course where featured artists reveal rare stories about their greatest songs, their greatest albums, information, and the insight you just won't find anywhere else. On this installment of Revelations, I'm elated to share this interview with one of the greatest guitarists of the 80s, really of the whole deal, the ultra supersonic virtuoso Steve Stevens, who was the foil to Billy Idol throughout his peak, co-writing with Billy on some of his greatest songs, including the story of today's hit, a song that's chorus is actually sung in English and in French, the satisfyingly peculiar Eyes Without a Face. Eyes Without a Face. This, of course, came from Billy's classic album, Rebel Yell. Man, you've got to hear Steve Stevens' story of his approach to this song and the guitar solo. It's very cool. Steve Stevens wrote the music and Billy Idol wrote the lyrics and the story of how it came together. Very cool. So Billy Idol would say about this song in his biography, I started to use Eyes Without a Face as a possible title, lyric, or chorus for the song. I began to write words that in some disguised form spoke about my life in New York and a relationship gone wrong, on the edge of disintegrating into madness. Perhaps I was reflecting on my own touring infidelities. In a way, those can leave you feeling soulless, especially if you're already in a relationship that you value, but you're degrading by looking elsewhere for additional sexual kicks. That's what Billy said. This one is such a classic. Like I said, Brian Wilson, this is his favorite song from the 80s. Now, as we go into this interview with Steve Stevens, I want to thank our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear, the brand I always wear. When you go to Zenni.com, you're able to do a virtual try-on of any pair that you like. It's called the virtual mirror feature that they have, and you can see exactly how the eyewear is going to look on you. You know, make sure it matches your face and you like the style. Like I said, you choose the look, the style, the color, the shape, and right now you can get a complete pair of prescription glasses for only $6.95. Just click on our link below. Here's Steve Stevens with the story. Eyes Without a Face is one of the greatest songs of the 80s. Second single from Rebel Yell, number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100, smash all over the world. This is another track with just a dark, mysterious complexion that's particularly strange for a ballad. I mean, your guitar work on this song, the solo especially, gave the song more substance, more texture. What was your inspiration created the music for Eyes Without a Face?
Oddly enough, it didn't come from a dark place at all. When during Rebel Yell, I was living in my parents' basement in Kew Gardens, Queens, and I had a little radio. And the only station, because it was in the basement, the only station I could get was the oldie station, CBS FM at that point would play Frankie Valli. All of the 50s doo-wop bands and things like that. I'm sitting there and I'm listening, and a lot of those bands have a progression, a chord progression. It's called 1-4-5-7. Any musician will tell you that's those standard 50s style chord changes. It's dream, 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 dream. Earth angel, earth angel. I thought, wow, I started to hear some of these singers and I went, wow, they're all kind of crooners like Billy, because he wasn't the Robert Plant type of singer.
Mama said the way you move, gonna make you sweat, gonna make you groove.
He was more the Jim Morrison.
Chased our pleasures here, dug our treasures there.
You know, Fogerty.
Susie Q, baby, I love you. Susie Q.
Elvis, certainly, you know, more of a baritone. So and I heard that in these songs, you know, I went, wow, you know, Billy Idol could sing one of these kind of songs. So I kind of like came up with the chord progression and I inverted them a little bit. And we were in rehearsal and I came into rehearsal and I'm just tinkering around with the chords. And Billy goes, what's that? I go, yeah, it's like a standard 50s doo-wop thing. He goes, I go, but I'm playing them in sevenths and, you know, moving them around a little bit, giving them a little bit of sadness to it. You know, the chords were a little bit happy the way they were doing it. So I injected a little bit of like melancholiness to it. I used to have Billy used to have those yellow legal pads and he'd have lyrics and God, I don't know how he deciphered what he had. It was like he could go through them and find, oh, I think I have something that fits that. And I guess he had seen this film, this French film, Eyes Without a Face. Had written lyrics, and once again, you know, we sat there, and within a half hour, he had the melody and the title and everything, and it was just based around these four chords, and we weren't sure what we had because he had never done a ballad, and we were unsure, but it was good. And then when Keith came in, we said, we don't know what we have, but it's pretty good. And Keith said, oh yeah, you know, it's got this atmosphere about it. Let's keep going. We just finessed it and kept moving it along, and we came up with the middle section, the guitar, and I said, you know, it can't just be this mellow ballad all the way through. I said, that's not Billy Idol. We've got to throw a curveball in there. So I said, you know, give me a couple of minutes and I'll just play over that middle section. Because once again, we always had these middle sections for remixes. I added the heavy guitar part, and I remember coming back to the control room. This was back when we didn't think of putting the amplifier head in the control room. So we were always on the other side of the glass, and I came back in and they were all hooping and hollering. Like, oh, it's great, you know. Oh, okay, I guess it worked, you know. So that was, you know, I could always tell when something worked or not, because I either go back in the control room and everybody's like that, or they're like that, you know. Okay. Good, it's a keeper.
Perry Lister singing backup vocals. Of course, she also sang backup vocals on Hot in the City and others. Singing in French, that brings like an innocent melancholy to the song. It's just really, like you said, atmospheric. The movie from 1960, it's just cool how that all came together. Did he kind of envision that as you were arranging the song, that she would sing that in French, or how did that come together?
I'm sure that the French idea came because the film was French. But those two would come up with concepts and ideas, and he'd come back in the next day and just go, oh, Perry's going to come in and sing the title in French. Okay, every time it would work. You know, they were very good at visualizing ideas that were different, you know. And once again, it made the song different than everything else that was out there, you know, because we definitely, okay, if we're going to do a ballad, it's not really even a ballad. I don't like to say it's a, you know, but it's considered mellow or whatever. But it was always, we have to do something to make it unique to Billy Idol. We can't just do Stairway to Heaven, or, you know, that wouldn't be Billy Idol. So these ideas would get thrown in, and it was certainly exciting for me and Keith, because were very creative. The two of them were very creative.
As you talk about the crooner, that is cool because I thought about how he sings that song just in the last few minutes, just thinking about it in my head, and it does sound like kind of a throwback there. But then when you throw that iconic guitar solo in there, and that brings that edge to that song. How did that come about? Because that's explosive, man.
Yeah, I mean, it was, we just, once again, we couldn't just have a ballad. We had to have something that reminded them, hey, it's still Billy Idol. It's still the Rebel Yell guy, That's a way for us to kind of keep the rock and roll element of it, And I would also say that the fact that Billy sings in a low register, I had to construct my guitar parts in a way that would complement that, as opposed to the guys who are, more guitar players that were more in the metal genre, because their singers are singing much higher. In a different register, so their guitar parts tend to be a little bit different. Mine are more rhythmic based, and they're more married to the drums and bass than some of the metal guys, because I'm part of that team, as opposed to something that's that the singer is going to be able to cut through. It was always very important that we came up with parts that Billy's voice could cut through.
The yearning verses slowly build emotion to that heart-wrenching chorus. It relieves that emotional tension. Your eyes without a face. In such a cathartic manner. Like I said, one of my favorites of the decade. Now, I read that the guitar solo was not originally planned.
In that song it was... like I said, we'd have these 32 bars in the middle of the song. We didn't quite know what we were going to do with it. But once I put the rhythm guitars over it, then it was, now we have to have a guitar solo. Okay, but we're going to have the guitar with backwards reverb to make it a sonic assault rather than just, the idea was never to just put a guitar solo on it for the sake of having a guitar solo. What's the point? If it doesn't need it, don't put it in. But if I can create something really cool that's going to enhance it, great. And as I said, we had an incredible studio, and it was inspiring. And I had Dave Whitman, an incredible engineer. So any idea that I could even remotely imagine could be realized, and it was never a struggle. These parts, sometimes you work on an album, and I've been in that situation where you're trying to get something to work, and guitar part's not quite working, or the sound doesn't work. With Rebel Yell, everything worked. It's one of those few examples of a record where every idea worked. I wish that happened more often. It doesn't.
Eyes Without a Face, your guitar work on that is so cinematic. I mean, that's why I think they need to use it in more movies and TV, because it's just like you said, atmospheric. It just puts you in a place,
right?
Especially that end part.
And I wonder why I don't despise.
The video on MTV was directed by David Mallet. That was nominated for an MTV award as well.
Yeah, I was always happy to do videos. I mean, I love doing the live performance videos. Those were always my favorite, because that's what I grew up, seeing rock video, rock films or whatever. The conceptual ones those were Billy's ball game. He would work with the director on that and just, okay, Steve, show up at, so-and-so, and just play your guitar, So, but they were always fun to do. Like I said, there was so many creative people involved, and and I'm still friends with a lot of the people that we did videos with. And camera DP is the guy that worked on all of those videos. Is still a close friend of mine, and met so many great people during that period.
Well, final thoughts on that particular song, Eyes Without a Face. all these years later?
I still enjoy playing it. It's amazing that you meet, now with getting to do meet and greets, and you'll meet people that that song has such a meaning to a lot of people who have maybe shared it with people that have passed on in their life, or it has substance and depth to it that people like. That song has inspired a lot of people who have had troubled times, or I can't tell you how many times people who have battled cancer have told me that song really helped them get through, or that record helped them get through their chemo or whatever. And I now when we play to an audience and we play some of these iconic songs, now they come and, fans and now have kids, or they're sharing it with their kids. And that's what I did with my dad. I didn't come from a household where it was, my dad listened to whatever was Benny Goodman. He listened to, all the same stuff that I did. He was accepting of it. He loved rock and roll. And so I love seeing that when I see a dad or a mom who's sharing the music with the kid or a son or daughter, and they're getting their first guitar. What should they get? It's just what an awesome experience.
Later, when I ask you about Dirty Diana, my 9-year-old has loved that song. He's loved that song since he was 4. When I told him a couple days ago that I was going to be interviewing the guitarist who played Dirty Diana, he freaked out. He
Oh,
thought it was so
wow. How
great.
cool. Yeah, that's a perfect example. I mean, music does affect people, and it is an important thing in people's lives. And it's so crazy to say, you forget that it's really, you can't really hold it. It's not a physical thing. It's just something that goes through the air. But there are songs that to this day, that I hear that bring me back to my childhood. And you can almost taste, touch, and feel exactly where you were at that point. To have people have that kind of experience, or with anything that I've been involved in, any of the music, and that's why we do it. That's why that inspires us.
It's a time machine, man. It's a time machine, and the only other thing that can do that is smell, sense.
Yes.
But
yeah.
Scents aren't readily available like music is. And music, like you talk about your dad, my dad passed away a year and a half ago, but those memories that we had, because he introduced me to all this music, and they last for the long haul.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times people say, I remember my dad, I put on Rebel Yell, my dad be banging on the wall, shut that, slow that, what is that crap, who's that guy, and now when they look back at it, it's a great memory to them. They wish they still had their dad banging on the wall, So it's like, it's all great.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Wasn't that great? Leave us a comment about Steve Stevens and Billy Idol and this 80s phenomenon. What are your memories of this song and this album? What do you think about the song, the guitar? It's just such a hypnotic song. What do you think about Rebel Yell, the album? Let's have a great discussion below. If you like our content, we do invite you to subscribe below. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Also, check us out on Patreon for even more content. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.